going on, FA Nation? John Impemba here with James Grande, bringing you the Fantasy Lime NBA DFS live stream. James, it's Friday here. We got a big slate. Some more breaking news is going on, FA Nation. John Impemba here with James Grande, bringing you active for the first time in like a handful of games. Maybe throwing a monkey wrench into a lot of people who are looking to stack some of those Raptors tonight, given all their injuries. Patrick McCaw is starting, like even more lineup interesting plays that they have going on there. But you're the man on the playbook today. How are you feeling about everything?
I'm feeling good. There isn't like a ton of value. I think there's enough for us to get by, in certain spots. But I think it's a strong slate. Good thing there aren't elite spend-ups like we had last night where every top dog in the NBA was playing, even it was a 4-game slate. But, if Towns doesn't play, we don't really have anyone over 10K to spend up on. So, right. The lack of value doesn't necessarily hurt tonight.
Oh, I agree with you there. If we're going to look at some of these matchups today, just games that kind of have high totals, you do have that Washington Toronto, which is going to be very stackable. You're going to see a lot of people there. 229 game total in that one. Phoenix OKC 220.5. And then our late night hammer here, New Orleans and Golden State 223, just a 1.5 point spread in that one. 10:30 start, probably going to be some interesting plays in that one for sure. Definitely some guys that certainly know how to score the basketball on both of those two teams.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird look at Vegas because we don't have as many notable totals as we've had. It's a lot of slow-paced teams on this slate, but that late night hammer is definitely interesting, and the Washington game, the Phoenix game. So there are still some really interesting games on this slate.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's get into it because we do have a lot to go to. Again, you were on the playbook, so we'll hit up your top overall plays here. We'll go at the point guard position at top. Guys, and notes that you have of players that weren't given the full analysis, but still that you're hitting on. Jeff Teague if Karl Anthony Towns sits, which I think is kind of interesting. Like I certainly know the upside that he can bring, but I think if Towns is actually active in that game, it's a more competitive game for Minnesota, and maybe you still get pretty good Teague value with him on the floor. Dame Lillard, and then of course Aaron Holiday is actually starting at shooting guard tonight. He's a point guard with no Jeremy Lamb, so those three are listed at the top. How you feeling more over the other there? Is there one that you're really leaning towards if you were to play?
Yeah, I'm actually leaning toward Aaron Holiday because Aaron Holiday's been getting big minutes regardless. He's been firmly in this rotation playing 20-plus minutes. He played 30 minutes just last game that Lamb left. So I think Aaron Holiday is going to play 30 minutes here. 4,300 is a great price tag. Luckily for us on DK, we get him multi-position eligible, so we could play him at both guard spots, which I love. And 4,300 across the industry is insane. Right. So I think Aaron Holiday's, talking about lack of value, I think he's one of the bright spots we have. So I would lean him. Obviously, the splits are there for us. Every time Lillard plays at home for it seems like he's going off. He did it the other day. So I like him. And only reason I say if Towns sits is because we know the usage rate in the fantasy point per minute spikes. So that's the only reason. I do agree that like if Towns plays, there's a better chance for Minnesota to keep this close. But I still like the spike in production that Teague shows when Towns is off the floor.
Yep, I agree with you there. So break down your top point guards that you do have in the playbook for tonight.
So Kyle Lowry, we were talking about it a little before we got on air, and I'm sure it's going to be a topic of discussion leading up to lock everywhere in user chat and on Twitter. What does Fred VanVleet do to Kyle Lowry? Obviously, Fred VanVleet has been a high usage player throughout the year, but we have to just look at this Raptors team as a whole. They're losing massive members of their rotation. They're losing their leading scorer in Pascal Siakam, who's taking anywhere from 15 to 20 shots on a regular basis. They're losing Norman Powell, who has stepped up as a secondary scorer with all these guys out, with VanVleet out. So there's still going to be plenty of usage for Lowry. He's still a ball dominant player. This has been the case when since DeMar DeRozan has been there. He's still going to run the offense. He still has triple-double upside, and he's still getting the Wizards at the end of the day. I still think Kyle Lowry is a great play. Maybe not as bullish on him as I was. I still think it's a solid I think there's a solid floor ceiling combo for cash games. I probably tend to go there in cash and not in tournaments. I think there are better plays in tournaments, like a Kemba Walker, who gets a 6% usage or 7% usage bump without Marcus Smart, Gordon Hayward. And he averages 1.57 fantasy points per minute. And we love attacking Detroit at the point guard position. They've allowed the 8th most fantasy points to the opposing point guard position over the last month. So I think Kemba's a good
do you think there's an ownership pivot there with the VanVleet news? We do, if you look at our ownership projections, we see Lowry almost like, 2.5, 3xing Kemba Walker here. Do you think with VanVleet active, maybe you see people pivot more down towards Kemba, at a similar price point, just knowing that now Lowry has a little bit more to compete with? Or do you think that ownership stays with Lowry in his spot against Washington?
I think it's a fair point. I think it's going to be pretty equal. I would say, both, because you could play both of them in cash. Like if you want to play them both in cash on FanDuel, that's more than fine. Like if you don't trust Aaron Holiday at 4,300, because I think a lot of people will pivot his way in cash games. If you want to play them both, I think that's fine. I probably think Lowry still garners slightly more ownership because it is Washington, because we have a 230 total, because Toronto has the highest implied team total on the board. But that doesn't mean there aren't going to be people that are pivoting to Kemba. You just brought up, it's a really good point, because I think there are going to be people. I still think Lowry edges him slightly just because of the matchup. But I'm not going to, if you feel more comfortable going to Kemba, perfectly fine, perfect pivot in all formats.
Yeah, I agree with you. Let's go down to sort of your mid-tier guards here. Definitely a big fan of Ricky Rubio tonight. I think even if Booker is active, he's a guy that I think can still excel, in this matchup here against OKC. And then, of course, Mr. GPP for us, Jamal Murray gets that matchup, against Jeff Teague, which is, we're always attacking Minnesota guards. So both of those guys, I think, are in really great spots.
Yeah, Rubio gave us back-to-back 50-point games without Booker, and then they ran into a really good Clippers team and got shut down. That's okay. This OKC defense is not a really good Clippers team. It's two different teams. There's 50-point upside, and he's going to be at less than 10% ownership if Booker sits. And like you said, if Booker plays, you could still play him. There's still double-double upside. Triple-double upside. It's not like Booker
still gave us 50 fantasy-point games with Booker active. So. Right,
and that's a fair point. And the rebounds will be there with sans DeAndre Ayton too. So there is upside there. I just obviously it's he gets a 5% usage bump without Devin Booker. He averages a team high 1.17 fantasy points per minute without Devin Booker. So those are numbers that jump off the page. And then Jamal Murray. I told you before we got on the air, I love pairing him with Jokic tonight. This pace up, it's a massive pace up spot. And we've seen Murray plenty of times in these high tempo games. Minnesota's 4th in pace, Denver is 29th, just for reference there. So they're getting a lot more they're going to see a lot more offensive possessions here. I love Jamal Murray for tournaments. Not going there in cash. Don't go there in cash. He's too volatile. At 66, 68, if he gives you less than 30 on a 10-game slate, you're toast. But we know he can go for 50. So I do love that. I think maybe one of my favorite tournament plays of the slate, though, is the guy I have below him in Derrick Rose, because I think people are going to be scared off by a 6K price tag. But we've seen Derrick Rose now play 28-plus minutes in back-to-back games. We've seen Derrick Rose pop off in those games. And when you look at the numbers with the guys off the floor, Kennard, Griffin, Jackson, because we should include Reggie Jackson, because Reggie Jackson obviously is a starter starts for this team when he's active. Almost a 4% usage bump, leads the team 1.53 fantasy points per minute. John, more than Andre Drummond. Andre Drummond's at 1.4, Rose is at 1.5. If he's going to play 28 minutes and this game can stay close, right? I think that's ultimately the factor in the Pistons in general, because can they keep it close? Sans Griffin, no Kennard. It has to be Rose and Drummond, right? Like that. That's how that is the path to them keeping this game close. So for tournaments, getting a sub 5%. No one's going to play Derrick Rose. Sub 5% Derrick Rose. I'm in. I'm in. Just sign me up. I'll sign on the dotted line. Yeah. All it has to say on the page is I want to play Derrick Rose at sub 5% tonight. and
Okay.
I'll
Yeah, I mean,
and I'll say
I think he's a good play as well. I got him over in my FanDuel lineup tonight for the same reasons. I mean, they're going to score. He's going to be the one that's scoring a lot of the points for them with no Kennard, no Blake. It's going to be Drummond. It's going to be Rose. Maybe Bruce Brown can get in there. We know that there's some upside potential, and we'll touch upon him, as we transition, to shooting guard. Good value for him, in your playbook. You're always sort of on Bruce Brown, too, in these scenarios.
Yep.
Last time out, I faded it and then was quickly regretting it because he, got off to such a great start there. But yeah, you're right. Rose is probably going to go overlooked. We don't have high ownership. Boston projected sort of a blowout, almost a 10-point spread there. So, I think Rose is a good call. If we do go over to shooting guards, you have Wiggins, you have Russell, and then, of course, you have my guy, Dennis Schroeder. If you're, how are you building and spending your lineups today at the shooting guard position? Are you finding yourself spending up, or do you think you're looking more towards these value mid-tier plays?
I have been doing more mid-tier value. Like FanDuel, I'm playing Bruce Brown, locking me in $4,500. Like I said, like you mentioned, I've played a bunch of Bruce Brown, and in 2 games recently without key cogs of that rotation, 39 and 48 fantasy points. So like the upside's there. He's very good peripherally. And he can contribute. He can get a bucket or 2 as well. So on FanDuel, I like Bruce Brown. I love Dennis Schroeder. I put some respect on his name. That was a shout out. That was for you. Put some respect on his name, as Birdman once coined on live radio. But yeah, the production has been there, right? 30 plus fantasy points in 4 of his last 5, and he went for 44. They're playing 3 guards the whole game. They're playing Paul, they're playing Schroeder, and they're playing
like SGA, like small forward, basically.
So. Right. So they're just playing, and they play Gallo. They are the definition of positionless basketball, like outside of Steven Adams and Chris Paul. They're just playing their best players, which I love. I think Russell is a fantastic tournament play. We've talked about it a bunch of times this year. He is their offense. So for Golden State to be in a 222 total, that's because D'Angelo Russell is shouldering the offensive load. He's shouldering the scoring load. And I love a little 2-man stack with him and Brandon Ingram. I think like if you're playing Brandon Ingram places or you're playing D'Angelo, I think you bring it back with one or the other. And then Andrew Wiggins, you said it about Teague, like you'd rather have Towns play. I don't care if Towns plays or not. Andrew Wiggins just gets you 40 fantasy points every night. So I think you could just play him in cash and move on, or you could play him in tournaments and be fine with that too if Towns doesn't play.
Dylan Brooks was just ruled in, if that makes any impact.
Goran Dragic. So I've had a hard time with this Heat and Knicks game today, and I'm a proponent of like 10 when it's 10 games or more. There are particular games I just don't like, and I get it. I'm not saying any of these guys are bad plays or bad tournament plays because they're obviously like Jimmy Butler against the Knicks, Mitchell Robinson for upside, Bam Adebayo 48 plus. There's just the Knicks Heat is just one of those games, and now Dragic just muddies those waters up even more. I'm staying away. There were pieces I liked. Derrick Jones Jr. Is that now impacted? Because now we can see Butler play more small forward with Dragic on the floor and Kendrick Nunn and Tyler Hero. Bam, does that take away a little usage from Bam? Because Bam's had 5+ assists in how many straight games now? Dragic is dominating the ball. So that just really turns me off the Heat in general. And I know it's going to bite me in the ass because, again, they're going up against the Knicks. But yikes. That's a yikes for me, dog.
Yeah, it's a yikes. A new rating scale system for you there.
Yeah.
It's a yikes level.
Yeah, yikes level for sure.
Okay. What other plays you're looking here at the position?
I think Drew Holiday's fine. He's just a little pricey. 8,700. Like it's hard to get behind, or 8,600 when I could just play Ingram for $100 more in that same game. He's shown at least a higher ceiling lately. Plus, he's gone from 57. I don't want to spoil what's next position, but he's gone from 57 against his team. So, Justin Holiday, I still think is fine. You mentioned we were talking about, like, TJ Warren's still sick, so he could exit this game at any point. Plus, they've been playing Justin Holiday over these guys anyway, like over Warren, over Lamb. So minutes. Right, so I mean, he's okay. I think Langston Galloway is going to be really chalky tonight, and I hate it. But on a night where, you know, we're lacking value, he's $3,300 on DraftKings. Yeah. I don't think we need to do it on FanDuel. I think DraftKings, it's a better fit.
He's just so scoring dependent, right? You know, like.
But the only thing is 3,300. Like, he's scoring dependent when we play him at like 4,200, and that's a lot scarier than 33 because even assist, like an assist here, a rebound there, and he gets his 12 points, and they're like, hey.
He's there.
Day's work, 5x. So I think 3,300 is a little better. And then Patrick McCaw, who's a shooting guard. I mentioned it. I had a weird suspicion that he was going to start. I mean, we talked about Terrence Davis on the pod last night, and then I looked into it, and I saw that Patrick McCaw was playing in the 20s in minutes just randomly.
I just don't know how, like, any of those guys are going to get shots with Van Vliet back. Like, Van Vliet's going to take a bunch of shots. Ibaka is more of an offensive player than Gasol has been, and Lowry's going to take a bunch. So I don't know if, like, you know, the wing player, like a guy like a McCaw, is going to get, you know, his shots up. I feel like it would have to be like a second unit type of deal, or maybe a different rotation. You know, the Van Vliet thing really, like I said, you know, at least for me, I look at it now and I'm like, you know, like I thought I had maybe a good grasp on how this rotation may work and where the shots are going to go. But I mean, we saw with Lowry out and all those injuries, Van Vliet taking like 30 shots, you know, right? So like, you know, I don't know what's going to happen. And we talked about last night, you know, we don't think they would put Van Vliet back on the floor unless he was going to play 35 minutes, you know, like he was capable. 100%. So yeah, I don't know. They called a bunch of guys up from the G League today. The Raptors did. So.
I had McCaw and Davis there prior to the Van Vliet news, so it kind of took me off. I was just kind of reading down the list.
Yeah, no problem. We'll go to small forward. I'm desperately trying to figure out a way to get Brandon Ingram in on my lineups. You know, I've, you know, almost like forcing yourself, at least for me, to like come off certain guys that I really like, because I just feel like at the worst or at the least, he can give me what they're going to give me. Plus, you know, we love that late night hammer exposure. And this is a spot where he's already gone for 50 plus. So, you know, Ingram lock and load, I think, on both formats, all types of contests.
Yep. Don't need to expand anymore. He was coming off a 56 fantasy point game, had 56 against Golden State in their first matchup, or 57 in a nice spot against a bad defense. Like, it is just a lock and load.
Where else are you looking at small forward as we go down?
Jaylen Brown. Perfectly fine. Still probably too cheap without Gordon Hayward, Marcus Smart. I think that he should be considered for all formats. I'm comfortable enough with him tonight in cash games against a bad Detroit defense. I think Kelly Oubre, we talked about it last night in the podcast, if Devin Booker sits, you know, he leads the team in usage rate without Devin Booker. Averages over a fantasy point per minute. So I would go to Kelly Oubre in tournaments. I think OG is a really good play across the board. I don't think he's affected at all by, you know, Patrick McCaw starting or Van Vliet in the lineup. I mean, they desperately need forward and center help. Like that's where all the injuries have occurred. I know, like, Norman Powell can play small forward at times. We know Siakam plays that position. We know Gasol is a big. So Anunoby, I think I'm locking and loading him in pretty much all my lineups. I already told you I kind of ruined this, but I liked Derek Jones.
Yeah.
I like him less now that Dragic is healthy because I just think the Heat can do.
They can go smaller, I guess.
They can just, I mean, and it's not even that much smaller. Like, Jones is 6'6", Butler's 6'5", so they're really like losing much there. So maybe Jones cuts into like Olynyk or cuts into, you know, Myers Leonard, and that's cool. But I don't want to trust that. I don't think we need to trust it, especially when we could just on FanDuel at least go to Marcus Morris or Markieff Morris. Maybe it is Marcus hidden because they have the same tattoos. Maybe they have switched teams just undercover. Like that movie with Parent Trap. This could be Parent Trap with the Pistons and the Wizards. We'll never know unless they admit to it one day, like 20 years from now, on the Darius Miles and Quentin Richardson podcast. I like. Huh?
Darius Miles and Quentin Richardson have a podcast together?
Yeah, it's pretty good. They just drink Hennessy and talk to
Talk about how big of a bust they were.
That is also true. Yeah, that you never forget the Sports Illustrated cover with Darius Miles. Darius Miles, it was a 3 like Cleveland athletes, and they were just all like busts. I don't know who was on it, but look it up. It was great. But Markieff Morris, $3,900. I mean, just hit the smash button, right? $3,900. You said it last night too. $5K is fine for Markieff, considering the production. 0.87 fantasy points per minute with Griffin off the floor this year. That's going to go up. If again, we attack Boston at the front court. That's like where we really like to attack them. I'm like, with the amount of Pistons I have, probably regrettably, I hope this game stays close, because if it does stay close, like has sneaky upside, I'd say, because there is sneaky Pistons value here. So I like Markieff at 3,900, and he's fine at 5K as well.
Okay. Anybody else at that position, or are you good to go?
John Isaac tournaments, Will Barton, we know tournaments, and Carmelo. I mean, the production has been there. It's undeniable. And Cedi Osman, $3,900 both sites. Is anytime he's been playing 30 minutes, he's been good. So
I always hate when I look up at the standings and see somebody winning money with Cedi.
Osman, it's so frustrating.
Like it's some like a 150 lineup guy or something like that who needed a $3,900 spot.
Exactly what I was going to say. Needed $3,900 and said, screw it, let's just play.
Needed 30 minutes at $3,900, and they're like, oh, there's Cedi Osman. Just maybe he'll hit a few more shots today. Power forward, you have Kristaps Porzingis at the top. I understand all of the numbers behind it. The fantasy points per minute's huge. The usage rate is huge. I don't know. This just seems like a really tough matchup. He's either going up against Al Horford or Joel Embiid, in that front court. He's been foul happy at times. He said he fouled out against Boston the other night, didn't he? Yep. And GVP is fine if you want to take the job, but you're spending a lot of money for him. I don't think I'm going to go there tonight. I don't think I would recommend going there. But, I mean, like you said, the numbers are there to sort of are trending in the right direction without Doncic.
I mean, it's not like these games have been in good matchups. Like we talked about last night. Boston, I mean, yes, we attacked Boston at the front court, but they're still a top 10 defense in the NBA. Milwaukee, that's Giannis primarily defending you, and that's a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. And the third game is against Miami, who is also a top 10 defense in the NBA, all 50 fantasy points. The offense is just going to run through him, period. And I get it. It's a tough matchup. I don't think it's like as much of a lock and load as it's been, but I still would go there in all formats, just based on the way he's playing, based on the production without Luka Doncic. It's there. The numbers are there. But like you said, there are plays underneath him that I completely understand pivoting. We have Serge Ibaka at 7,400 with no front court depth, and he coming off a 48 fantasy point game with no blocks. And we know Ibaka, his nickname is literally Iblaka. So there is 48 point upside again. Kevin Love is too cheap on FanDuel. He's too cheap on DK. If we want to play him in tournaments, anytime he plays over 30 minutes lately, he's smashing. 2 out of the last 3 times he's played over 30 minutes, he's gone for 50 fantasy points or more, and we're getting him under 7K and under projected 5% ownership in a pace-up spot. So you can go to Kevin Love. Davis Bertans, going to play 100 minutes. He's the best shooter we've ever seen in our life. We've never seen a better shooter. It's like Bertans, Curry, Korver. I don't care what order you go in. Best shooters of all time. 6,400. He's starting. I don't think we need to really touch on that anymore. He's been great. Yeah. You can play the Suns guys. So, right. But I don't know. Like Porzingis has had that 50-point floor. All these other guys have flashed it, and Porzingis has done it 3 straight games without Luka, and that I just keep going back to him. I think everyone else is really good play. I think you can also go to Ronnie Hollis-Jefferson, even though he's not starting.
That's what the ownership, you're showing. At least we are. 45% ownership. Just to give that out to you guys. It's not like a secret. Like it's a mid-price play, and I don't really worry as much about it, knowing that he's not starting. Because you do look at the games.
Right.
When Ibaka was out, and I think Siakam or OG, one of those two.
OG was out for a while,
and he had a stretch of like 4 games of 20+ minutes. He had 30 in one of them. So, yeah, I think Hollis Jefferson's fine at the price. He's just another one of those guys you and I are always like, why doesn't he just play more? Like, why don't they give him the opportunity? So, there's a really good chance that given that OG's like natural position is small forward, that McCopp doesn't play all these minutes today at that position. They do give Hollis Jefferson some run there, and I think Chris Boucher is a center, but and you have
he's power forward on FanDuel, center on DK.
Yeah. So I think that's another guy that's probably going to get you 20 to 22 minutes tonight. I think think like what Ibaka was playing before. I think Boucher's probably in that bench tonight.
Yep, probably, and he's fine. We saw him be very productive in games past as well, so. He's fine. He's projected far too much ownership for my liking. Yeah. Like, that's scary.
But we all did just go play like 30% of Thon Maker the other night. So like,
so true. It's so true.
So what are we doing here? Right? The value is there, and we're victims to the value. But like you said, like that slate, we had to find guys to spend up on. This is definitely a more even, fair and balanced slate because. There isn't that, Giannis or Harden or whatever to pay up for. So let's wrap this up, though. Let's go to the center spot. Andre Drummond, you and I are both very high on him tonight, even if the potential blowout. Boston can't defend the position. Daniel Tice will start. He's just too small. He's more of a stretch power forward than a true center. And then Enes Kanter, who's a good rebounder and offensive player, doesn't play a lick of D. So, Drummond in a really, really great spot against those two. Tonight, I think he is probably my top center. As I said on the podcast last night, you called him out for a triple double. Are you sticking with the Drummond triple double call here?
I'm standing by my guns.
Hey, committed. I like it.
Triple double for Andre Drummond tonight.
Yeah, it was bold. I don't know. I'm sure.
It is definitely bold.
2 assists over the last 4 games, and James is calling for the triple double.
With Blake Griffin, the offense runs through Drummond. Okay. When he's not on the floor. Plus, there's no Kennard. So it's literally Rose and Drummond with the ball in their hands the entire night.
Well, that's why I worry about the starting lineup tonight. Like, who's scoring for them in the starting lineup? Is it just Brown?
Langston Galloway.
Yeah, Langston Galloway. Below them, you do have the Joker, Nikola Jokic, playing really well. I admitted last night that he's a guy that I have interest in, which is probably a sign for everybody not to play him because he's going to go back to playing like he had been crap, but especially if there's no Towns, it's a great spot for him. Production's been there. He's giving you triple-double upside. Hard to really argue with how he's playing right now. So I think he's a really easy pivot off Drummond.
Yeah, he's another Denver guy. Like, I have Paul Millsap written up top. He's significantly better at home. If you look at Jokic's splits, he averages 10 more fantasy points at home than he does on the road. Again, what is the reason? Nobody knows, but it's a almost 30
I think it's because they're used to playing in Denver
in the high altitude.
Right.
Well, that benefits us, right? Because they're in Denver tonight. So 48 fantasy points per game at home, 38 on the road. So I'm in on the Joker. I think you're right. I think he's a great pivot. And I was on Bam, and I know Dragic and him, like, you may not think correlation, but we've seen a 50-point floor out of Bam because his ability to dish out assists this last stretch of handful of games. And now I think Dragic takes away from that. So I think I'm a little less bullish on him. And I would just, after Jokic and Drummond, drop down to guys like Tristan Thompson, Steven Adams, perfectly fine in the mid-tier. I think both are strong fantasy point per minute producers. You mentioned Enes Kanter. Gorgeous Dong, if Town sits, is still 4.4K, 4.9K. And then I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to pronounce this name. I have the pronunciation here in front of me.
It's the Washington guy?
Andrzej Pasekniks. That's his name. But he played
that because I would have never gotten there.
Andrzej Pasekniks. I have the official pronunciation in front of me. It's still tough reading it broken down for you.
Breakdown,
yeah,
can't get it.
It's still tough with the phonetic breakdown. But 27 minutes in his debut, they obviously don't want to play Jan Mahimi more than 24 minutes.
Oh, he'll break. So
he will break. He's like the Derek Favors light, where you play him.
Favors getting the minute bump today. We didn't talk
Favors
about
is getting the minute bump, and we love attacking Gold State at the center, right? So I don't hate that. I don't hate it. $5,100 is not a bad price tag. I think he won't be
exposure.
Right, and I mean he was really good.
He was giving us like 40 fantasy.
Good.
Does that take you down off Ingram at all? Just given the cost of Ingram, almost $9K, does Favors playing 27 minutes tonight? Where are you?
No.
At all?
No, because I mean he played 21 and Ingram's Favors minutes rose and Ingram's production rose.
Sure.
So I mean he put up 56 fantasy points even with Derek Favors minutes into the 20. So right. Not really. Not really. I think if anything, the more the merrier. You play Favors, Ingram, and coming back with Russell. So I don't have Derek Favors, but the more we talk about it, the more I like it.
Okay. Any other centers here that you're taking a look at?
No, that's it. Mention all the guys at the top, and we mentioned Boucher. Brandon Clark, who's power forward center, has been really, really good. Took 17 shots the other night and made 13 of them. So I think he's fine. A little pricey for my blood, but
the limited role. I mean, he's just incredibly efficient. So he needs to continue to be very efficient for him to really hit that fantasy.
He's playing 24 minutes. We know he's not playing.
You can't get to a slow start. You can't come off the bench and get cold and then hope to make it up really in your next run because his usage rate's okay, but it's not he's not a volume guy. So
if he was 4,600, I think we would be more invested, but he's $5,600, so it's a little scarier.
Yeah, I agree with you there. All right, any final thoughts here before we sign off?
Andre Drummond going for a triple-double. That's how I ended the podcast. That's how I'm going to end the live stream as well.
All righty, and I will. I'll be surprised if that happens, but again, I got him in my lineup, so I guess I'll root for it. Though he is going up against my Celtics as well, so.
Well, that doesn't mean they can't win. They can win, and Andre Drummond can go for a triple-double. That's a win-win for you, John.
It's true. All right, everybody, we're in subscriber chat. Roster lock at 7. Any news breaks, we'll be there for you. Get us your questions, and good luck, everybody.